It's time to rip the cover off what really works to ditch addiction, depression, anger, anxiety, and all other kinds of human suffering. No, not sobriety. We're talking the F word here, freedom. We'll share straight from the trenches what we've learned from leaving our own addictions behind and coaching hundreds of others to do the same. And since it's such a heavy topic, we might as well have a good time while we're at it.
Welcome back to the Alive and Free podcast, and now it's time to talk about parenting. And you know what's interesting is that the focus of this podcast is on giving you the insights or tools or the clarity to be able to live a life that is both full of life and also free of all the constraints, the expectations, the shoulds that tend to pull a person down and aren't absolutely necessary. To experience a really high level of freedom in your life. And this is where the rubber hits the road, is in parenting, because a lot of the people, pretty much everybody that we've ever worked with, hundreds and hundreds, we're nearing on 1,000 people at this stage in the game. And a lot of the people that we've worked with, most of their struggles come from how they were raised, how they grew up, how they feel about themselves as a response to that. And that's not just trauma. That's also just the fact that as little kids, you make up stories about what's going on. And if no one's there to help you see through those stories, they just stay. So if you felt like you were awkward as a kid and that's the story that stuck, then you grow up feeling awkward. And everything in your life that plays into that, you just see as evidence. See, I'm awkward. Yet there are billions of times when you're not awkward. And so what is the job of a parent but to be there in a way that'll help the kid, one, not die, and then two, to grow up in a way where they too can be alive and free. So in many ways, parenting is where we take everything we've been talking about on this podcast and make it accessible to a younger generation. So Jasmine and I are pretty much aligned on the way we think about parenting, but we have different approaches. Would you say that?
Yeah. I think my role as a parent is definitely more the heavy-handed enforcer.
Apparently.
One parently.
So Jasmine really likes structure in general. Oh, if you guys haven't ever done this, at kolbe.com, Kolbe.com, they do assessments called the Kolbe A assessment. They do these for corporations and stuff as well. The A assessment is a personal one, and Jasmine and I did this
a couple of years ago,
a few years back.
And did it because he made me do it.
Yeah. But it was so eye-opening to us because it really helped me see just how much we genuinely operate differently. And like when it comes to information, more or less the same. She tends to like a little bit more information than I do. Yeah. I tend to want key information more than she does. I think when it comes to spaces, she's a little bit more hands-on with a physical space than I am, but both of us are kind of in the same boat. But when it comes to systems and routines and whatnot, let's just put it this way. When Jasmine solves a problem,
I have a system and a routine, and Bob has none.
That apparently is part of her problem solving, that Bob has none. She will schedule it on the calendar, or she will create a checklist, or she will do things like that. And at the same time, one of their go-to things is also to make sure that everybody's taken care of, that no risks are being overtaken, that any possible risks in the future are avoided right now as she's creating this system, right?
Sure.
I am the exact opposite. I am there to innovate a solution based on the one specific situation and only that situation, which means I'm winging it almost all the time. I handle surprise and chaos exceptionally well. I've trained in martial arts, which is pretty much all surprise and chaos. And I'm constantly improving on breaking down systems, putting them back together. It's what enabled me to figure all this stuff out, where all of the rest of the industry and all the rest of the people talking about it have missed massive pieces of information because I was able to synthesize that. But when it comes to us solving problems together, well, that has been, before we did this, it was a really huge struggle because, well, there's a problem that comes up. Bob's automatically creating solutions. Jasmine is automatically
shooting them down.
Pigeons.
Pigeons.
Pretty soon, Bob doesn't want to answer come up with a solution.
I don't want to ask him for anything.
Because he's like, I'm apparently the only one that wants to solve this. You're just creating problems. But that actually is her way of solving problem is to foresee difficulty and then create a system that will circumvent that.
Right. Take the path that has either no obstacles or the least amount of obstacles. Easier path through it. Bob's is just, let's blow all the obstacles out of the water and plow right through.
If we were to take this like a ski run, she's going to go down the sloping, smooth trail, and I'm going to take the jumps. Basically, that's how that runs.
Sure. I don't ski, so I probably would just roll down the bunny hill and call it a day.
But the point is, we operate differently, and that isn't a bad thing. That is a huge, great thing. So when it comes to, for instance, family vacations, now I plan it and actually that I like to do that. So I plan it. I make sure everything's in order. I get us all settled and set, packed and everything. And then anything that comes up, Bob's in charge. Right. So I handle all of the difficult. So she's planning Christmas. She's looking for Christmas deals early in the year. Last year, she had some presents in May. Wow. And, usually
but like, honestly, that's pretty typical. So, not wow. Normal for me.
And, I'm thinking about it, oh yeah, Christmas is coming, whatever, here and there, every now and again. But usually it's like a couple weeks before I'm like, ooh, do I have presents for everyone? Oh, I should probably do something like this.
Right, because it's really, did Jasmine get presents for everyone? I need to get something for Jasmine.
Right. Jasmine takes care of everybody in a big way. If I had to, I would, but it would always probably be more or less last minute.
Yeah.
And I do well last minute.
Yeah.
So this isn't Jasmine's approach is better. It is more responsible to the people that operate that way. Mm-hmm. But to the people that operate my way, it is way too much work when that work isn't needed to be done. And that effort is best spent in other places. So everybody is different. So when it comes to parenting, Jasmine wants to have some structure. And there are some of our kids, especially our second and third, who really thrive on structure. Yeah. They need to know how the day's going to be built, what's going to happen next, if everybody's going to be taken care of. And if that's not there, especially number 3, mm-hmm. he can't function. Like he's frozen. Yeah, so number 3, he will really just kind of freeze and like he'll stand there, get a kind of a blank stare on his face, just trying to process. Like one day he didn't get snack time because he was still cleaning his room. And I told him they had to finish cleaning their rooms before they got snack. And they just played in their room. They were having a great time, but it didn't get cleaned. Snack time came and went. And then I called them down for dinner, actually. They didn't care about food. They weren't asking for snacks. They were just having a good time playing. I called them down to dinner and he just kind of froze because he's like, but I didn't get a snack. And I was like, oh, well, it's time for dinner. Come on. And he's like, he could not handle the fact that he missed snack time. And then our second in elementary school, probably in first grade or so, he was just having meltdowns every single morning. And I figured out if the night before I could prep him and say, okay, what clothes are you going to wear tomorrow? This is what we are having for breakfast. And then we're going to do this and this in the morning. And then we're going to go to school. Meltdowns eliminated. Like he had expectations of how the morning was going, and when it didn't go that way, he couldn't handle it. So once we kind of talked about it, mornings went a whole lot smoother. So part of this is the freedom to operate the way that you are designed to operate, the way that you have figured out how to navigate the world. In other words, to play to your strengths. Most of the education system is built around a certain set of strengths. For instance, people that research and they gather a lot of information and they read books and they do homework in a certain processes and stuff. And education isn't built for people, for instance, that learn with their hands very well. Now, there are some education systems that do that and others that don't. But generally speaking, hands-on learning they're trying to incorporate it, but it's with multiple intelligences and stuff like that with Howard Gardner's work and whatnot in the schools. But it's still predominantly focused toward people who are very big on data and research and people who follow systems really well. So when it comes to innovation, even though schools want to claim innovation, the system isn't set up to really promote that super well in most cases. But as a person, your ability to thrive sort of depends on your ability to not always just play to your handicaps and instead play to your strengths. Yes, they want you to do this project. How can you use your own strengths to do that? As an example, in the business, the CEO of my business, Tucker, who was an early client and became a partner early on, has helped coach a lot of people. He's really big on research. So when it's time to go solve a problem, he'll go get a bunch of information and he'll read a bunch of books. Whereas I'll just start trying stuff. And Jasmine will put a checklist together and try and make sure where things are going to go off. 3 different approaches to the same problem. When Tucker doesn't have enough information, he can't make a decision. Me, if you give me too much information, I can't make a decision. Mm-hmm. Jasmine, if you're giving her the wrong kind of information, she needs to know who's gonna be hurt or where it's going to go down and all that other stuff. So it's very, very different for each of us. And with you as a couple, husband and wife, you need to learn what those strengths are. The Kolbe assessment is a great one to start learning about that. There are obviously all kinds of strengths finders and other personality things online. If you jive with those, this one was simple and direct and easy to comprehend for me. And it's helped a lot of clients too. So I highly recommend it. So with your kids too, they're each different and each one needs to be given the chance to figure things out and play to their strengths. So that comes down to more or less our parenting strategy, which is we want our kids to be 100% self-sufficient or as close to that as we can get them to before they move out of the house so that they have live-in coaches all the way and they're living, quote unquote, in the real world before they actually move out. And we want them to make all of their mistakes before they're felonies. Because then they have some people that can help them sort it out and they can learn to be independent emotionally, even financially to whatever extent we can make that happen. And they can learn to cook, they can learn to do their laundry and all this other stuff. So everything that we're doing as parents is to prepare them to that end, to give them the information to help them understand their natural strengths and whatnot.
Yes.
That was a very eloquent yes, Jasmine.
I know. That's all I got.
So the question that comes to us, especially around the big things that the kids are going to run into, usually is around, okay, what about the sex talk? Talk to me about your... She hasn't done this yet because we only have one girl and that girl is coming up on it.
It is so easy for me. I haven't had to do it. Well, we've had 4 boys so far. And we usually give it at around age 8.
Depending on maturity level and what they're asking and stuff like that.
So around age 8, and I have Bob do it. He usually takes him for a walk or drive in the car or something. And then afterwards, I come in to the conversation and we talk a little bit more about it, see if they have any questions from the mom's point of view, that kind of thing. But we do that with more than just the first sex talk. We do it with a lot of... Because you don't want to just give them one and say, "Okay, it's good." That's
what my dad tried, and I didn't even know the topic of conversation. He just asked if I had any questions, and I said no, and that was it.
So give them the talk. We like to do it earlier when hormones are not a factor really in the matter. So it's just kind of straightforward. This is what it is, factual. Not really any emotions about it for the kids anyway. Then. Interesting sometimes, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but we try and make it as, just this is what it is as possible. I assume I haven't given the talk, but that's what I do when I come in afterwards. And then, there's follow-ups, there's how you doing, there's, all different kinds of things that we do because as they do grow and then as their hormones do come in, they're going to have different questions. They're going to have different responses to things. And we want to just make sure that the conversation stays open and that they feel comfortable talking to us about that.
Yeah. And part of that is not reacting emotionally to the fact that little kids don't understand the words that are coming out of their mouth. Mm-hmm. As of, for instance, one Sunday, our little girl came to me and she said, "Dad, I want to watch some pornography." Now, quick backstory. Jasmine and I were dancers. We did a thing called choreography.
A lot.
And there's a Bing Crosby show called White Christmas. Maybe you've heard of it, where there's a tune called, it's not dance, it's choreography or whatever it is. Mm-hmm, so she's had these things in her head, but she also hears the conversations that I have with other people. So she's like, "Dad, I want to watch some pornography." If I had been like, What are you thinking? That's bad. that would have led something very different to what actually happened. I said, okay, what exactly do you mean by pornography? Tell me about that. And then she described, well, it's not dance, it's pornography, she said. And she described dance moves. I was like, oh, that's choreography. And then we got to have a talk about what pornography was, because obviously she didn't know the difference. But it was a very different conversation than if I had just freaked out. So if you are emotionally uncomfortable with things, the worst thing you can do is react out of that space with your kid and try and pretend like you have it all together and like you know everything. They don't actually know what they're asking most of the time. When I was a kid, I've told this story before, so I'll briefly mention it. I asked my dad what a condom was in the middle of a department store, and he told me it was an emergency water bag. And he did that, for whatever reasons. I haven't actually grilled him on why all the reasons it was he did that. But it was basically, that's what they use it for in the Air Force. It can hold water, so there is that. But he kind of deflected the question because it was uncomfortable. And so I was like, oh, that's weird, because my friends wanted a year supply of those. Why would you want a year supply of emergency water bags? Anyway, at the end of that, I just kind of learned later, some years later with a TV show, what a condom was. And I also learned from that conversation that, oh, my dad's not going to answer these questions straight. I'm not going to be able to trust him. And he didn't intend for that at all. He did the best he knew how, and it was an uncomfortable topic. And it's not like he was trained in it. But because of that unwillingness to just be a real person and to have the need to be in control of the situation, then suddenly, I learned to not go to him for information. And then that led eventually to me getting curious and snooping around online and finding pornography and testing out the waterworks and all that other stuff from there. So I can't say that I wouldn't have done that anyway, but that definitely was a contributing factor.
If you or someone you know is looking to drop the F-bomb of freedom in their life, whether that's from past trauma, depression, anxiety, addiction, or any other host of emotional and personal struggles, but they just don't know how or want some help doing it, head on over to thefreedomspecialist.com/feelbetternow and check out some of the things we've got in store for you, or book a call so we can look at your unique situation and get you the help that you're looking for.
Well, I remember there was one time when I had to run to the grocery store really fast, and I had my oldest with me, and he was probably 11 or 12 at the time, maybe 10, I don't know. But I had to get some more pads. It was on my list, and I didn't want to have to not get him and go back, but he was following me. So I was like, whatever, we're just going to do it. So I go down the maxi pad aisle and I grab it, and he just looks over. He's like, maxi pads? What are those for? And I kind of did, this sidelong glance down both sides of the aisle. There wasn't anybody in that specific aisle. So I was like, well, let's do this. So I just, it was really a short 30-second version of why women might need to use maxi pads. And his face in the store was just like, ugh.
Why would you do that?
He was just like, okay. And I was just like, do you have any more questions? He's like, no.
No.
He was done. But, I don't know whether that was the best place where I probably could have said I could tell you later. And maybe I would have if it was packed with people. But there was nobody there. I felt it was as good as place as any. And, it worked out. Okay.
The more normal you make it, the less reactive you are to the situation, the less they'll think that it's something big and that they need to explore and that they need to freak out about. These are just facts of life. Everybody is born with sexual genitalia, I'm pretty sure. I can't think of anybody who hasn't been in the Guinness Book of World Records or something, maybe, but everybody is born with it. It's a natural part of human life. And if we start to treat it like it's something that shouldn't be talked about or should be talked about over the top of other things like modern media does, if you start to exaggerate its place in life, then they get an exaggerated view of it. And then that exaggeration leads them to behave as if it's bigger or smaller than it really is. It's just a little over 2% of your DNA that makes you male or female. That's it. And if you're going to treat it as if it's this 10% problem or 50% problem or the biggest plague in the world today, then what happens is that people operate around it like it's this big, fearful thing. And that's what leads to them being controlled by that kind of behavior. So I have retreats. My oldest sons have been helping out in those for a while. And they've seen men and women from all different walks of life. Not all of them have been suffered from sexual abuse or other things, but they've been around it. It's just normal, common fare for them. And their relationship to that part of humanity is very, very different than your average teenager because, well, they've seen more and it hasn't been hidden from them. And so there's not a lot that they can really get curious about that we haven't already talked about. It hasn't been on the table. Not everybody has, I guess, this luxury of running a business like this. Such a luxury. They don't have the luxury of living in an addiction for 18 years and then coming out of it. The point is, like, we keep it very, very open. Now, the conversations I have with them are straightforward. I try not to tell them what they should and should not do for the very reason that that very language made me respond in the way that I did growing up. You shouldn't do this. You should do that. Because when I wasn't doing it, fine. But at the moment I did it once, this heap of guilt and this mountain of you're broken and you'll never get better and you've done this wrong thing and it's the most horrible thing in the world and you should be ashamed of yourself fell on me, predominantly created by me, but as a result of all of that kind of rhetoric. And so I try to keep it very straightforward. And this has been my experience with pornography. This has been my experience with masturbation. This is what happens. It feels great. It's a wonderful, beautiful part of human life. And it has led me also down all these other side roads that ended up in this situation and that one. And so I highly, highly recommend, just for now, if you got questions, ask. And like, if I recommend waiting. Wait till you're married. Wait till you have someone else that you can explore that with. Now, some of you don't believe that marriage is necessary, and obviously that's up to you as parents to figure that out. But I would recommend it. But then I would end that by saying, look, kid, whatever you decide, I want to be a part of your life. If for some strange reason you end up in jail, I want to come visit. Can I be one of your visitors? I want to know what's going on. I want to be a part of your life. I want to hear what's happening with you. And if I don't have an answer, then I would really, really like to help figure one out and do that with you. And so I'm constantly, when I'm talking to them, working on making sure that the conversation isn't one of shame or of guilt or of you're going to do something wrong or of fear, but one of like, wow, this is life. This is what I've learned from my experience. And I want you to do the same. I want you to really pay attention, see what works, see what doesn't work, watch how it's affecting other people's lives, and use that to inform your own. Jasmine has a slightly different approach because rules and structure are very, very helpful for some of our kids and for her. So you want to talk about that?
I probably just encourage or try to encourage certain behaviors more than Bob does. He's a lot more, what's the word? I don't know. I feel like I have to lay down the law a lot more than Bob does.
And that comes back to the way that we solve challenges, right? We're confronting this thing called life. Her way of doing it is like, let's look at risks and let's find a path that is going to work for everybody and that is like reliable and whatnot, where my approach is going to be, let's wing it. What does the situation call for?
Also, in regards to like consequences, if one of our kids does make a choice that isn't what they were supposed to be doing at the time, we really try to make the consequences one related to the action. So it's not a punishment. It's just, hey, something has to follow this and we'd like it to be a learning experience. So the past few times that's happened, we have encouraged them to come up with their own consequence approved by us.
Yeah, let's give an example with the phones, because I think that's a really important one. And a lot of people have questions around phones and electronics and stuff. So basic layout is Jasmine's like, cool, if we're going to give you a phone, you're going to have a contract. These are the terms and stipulations of the phone. If not, you don't get it, right?
So I actually type up a contract. They sign it. I sign it.
Nobody ever sees it again.
It's probably but it happens.
And that involves like at a certain time and day, 7 o'clock.
So the time limits usually they're supposed to not have really access to anything besides call or text from 7 a.m, and then depending on the kid and the day, whatever time at night. Like if they're hanging out with friends, I'm not going to turn off all their stuff at 7 o'clock at night. on a weekend. But there's certain times where they just have limited access to their phones. I think all 3 of them, maybe just 2 of them at this point, don't have access to the internet on their phones, or they are only allowed certain websites like the church website or the school website or
PBS Kids.
Things like that. So it's
or Duolingo or things like
pretty limited access to apps and websites on their phone.
Now, our goal is that by the time they're hopefully 16, 17 when in there, they can have full access.
Mm-hmm.
We want to work up to our sense of trust that they can handle it so that they have full access and full reign on all this stuff before they leave home, so that they don't leave home and go like, I'm free.
Let's try everything.
And so we want them to get that before they leave home. And so that's what we're working toward.
Right.
But each kid at the pace that it allows. So that's the backdrop.
Yeah. And we're not going to just toss them in a pot of boiling water. You know, we're trying to teach them.
We prefer to boil the water while they're in it.
Slowly accustom them to it.
But so that's kind of the backdrop. Now, when it comes to consequences, here's what happened. Recently, one of our kids, we were out on a date.
So it's Halloween, and I
took her to an Andrea Bocelli concert.
Yes, we accidentally really scheduled it on the day before Halloween, which is, since Halloween was on a Sunday last year, our neighborhood did Halloween on Saturday. So we didn't even think about that. But we just went to the concert, and our 2 oldest were in charge of taking the kids trick-or-treating. One was in charge of taking the kids trick-or-treating, and one was in charge of staying home and passing out candy. And they all agreed to it, and I told them that they could have one specific friend over because I trust that friend. And other than that, they just had to stay and chill with the kids and take care of the house and everything on Halloween. And we get home, and, you know, it's late. The kids are asleep and whatnot. And was it the next day? I think it was the next day. I look out the back window, and there is candy all over the backyard. Not like tons of candy, but a few pieces of candy just like strewn across the backyard, and a plunger. So I don't know what happened, but it was my plunger in our backyard.
Yeah. So we had some conversations, and so we went back and forth among all the kids to try and figure out what had happened.
And our oldest 2 were sleeping in. The ones in charge, they were sleeping in. So as the younger kids woke up, we asked them how the night went and things. And then we started hearing certain things that were a little bit suspicious. And so I actually went and checked my boys' phones, their texts, and found some more things that didn't align with how the night was supposed to go, the rules set for the night, right? And so as they woke up, one of them, we talked to him about it, and he is like, oh, it's fine. He didn't say much, but we didn't have a lot of dirt, so to say, on him. It was mostly the other one. So the other one was taking way too long to wake up. So Bob and I both went up to his room and kind of woke him up and was like, hey, we just want to know what happened, you know, how last night went, and really tried to give him, not trick him into it, but give him the opportunity to tell us what happened, because we weren't still 100% clear on what happened. So we're trying to find out what happened and give him the opportunity to just be upfront with us.
Which is exactly how it worked with this kid when he was 11 and ran into porn for a little bit.
Right.
And we got a notification, and we just sat down with him. And now when you're sitting with your kids, if you sit down to confront them, then they're going to treat it like a confrontation. So usually I will not make eye contact, not force them to make eye contact. I will sit at their level or below so that they have control over the situation. I want them to feel like, hey, look, this isn't a confession. This is just, where are you at in your life? And we noticed some things, and let's talk about it. And so that there's not this sense of you have to fix yourself, but rather a sense of, well, some things happen. Let's look at that and let's learn. Because according to John Dewey, and I agree with this statement, man doesn't learn by experience. He learns by reflecting on that experience. Because it's the reflection, looking back on it, that allows some things to sink in and go, oh, okay, yeah, that actually did that, and that came from this, and okay, that makes sense. How about we course correct? So here, too, we were trying to give him this opportunity. We were not confronting him or forcing him to look us in the eye and all that other stuff either. It took him a while.
Yeah, so he offered up bits and pieces of information. And then, I would ask I think I asked, hey, why is that plunger in my backyard? And he gave like half of the answer. And then, so I did have to ask some follow-up questions to clarify, like, okay, so the kid said that more than this friend was over. How many friends did you have over? Because you weren't supposed to have any. And how long did they stay?
And it turns out he left.
And it turns out he actually left the house I don't know at what point, but he wasn't supposed to leave the house. Left the house with friends for however long, came back. They were in our house, and it was just this whole big, you weren't supposed to do that. You were supposed to be in charge of the kids. And he went and hung with his friends for a little bit.
Right. So what was the consequence?
Well, so basically, that was when we were like, hey, there needs to be a consequence. We want you to learn from this. We don't want it to be, mom and dad are dictating that you have to do this. So you can choose some consequences. We can approve it. If you don't want to choose them, or if you can't think of anything, I, as mom, would be happy to give you some options. He came up with his own. He decided that he basically grounded himself for a week or two, which, there
was a big party in the middle of it.
Some parents might be like, well, that's not enough. But he did miss a birthday party of one of his really good friends for that. And that was his choice. He came home and he said, oh, I just found out that she's having a party, but I can't go because with my thing. And I was like, okay. But he was very, very mature about it and didn't throw a fit or a tantrum or yell at me or anything, because it was his consequence that he picked. And what else? There was something else. I think he had to do like he decided to do an extra chore or something because of the backyard fiasco. There's just a plunger. That's all.
Yeah.
But it's just so weird to me. Why would there be a plunger in my backyard?
Folks, if there's a plunger in your backyard, there's more than meets the eye. So our other son, just briefly, the second son, we're working on enabling him to be more responsible with screens. He is much more into screens than our first son.
And he gets super sucked into him, loses track of time, loses where he's at.
Yeah. And so for him, he wanted a certain game on his phone that his friends are playing. And I was like, you got to show me that you can finish your homework on time and that you can manage your screen time without us having to harp on you for a couple of weeks before I'm willing to let you do that. And he did. And so then he gets this thing. And then as his screen time starts to creep up again, then we start to pull back. Look, okay, we're going to have to curtail this and pull it back because you're not governing your own screen time now. We're having to do this. And that means we're going to have to pull it back. And so we're always looking at this as a way of training the child to be responsible with whatever this society has in store. I think it's arrogant to think that any adult knows how to raise a child in this day and age. We've never lived as teenagers at this time. And so we're thinking we're preparing them for the future, but we don't even know what that future is going to be like. And I think it's more intelligent to be like, this is what we've seen. We're all here. And it's not the child that's the problem. It's the situation that's the issue. And we're trying to empower the child to live alive and free. So as a final note, one of the things that I really want the children to learn is that every rule that Jasmine and I set for them is a rule that only applies while they're with us. Just about every rule we set is in some way, shape, or form, we let them know it's temporary. Right now, this is what we're thinking. We may change this in a month or so, but right now, this is what we want. Now, I want them to be free of the feeling that they have to live the way we're hoping to have them live in our house when they leave, because they may have a different and better scenario. And so every rule that we give them, I want to be sure that they understand that it's temporary. And I would much rather that they learn how to pay attention to what works in life so that they can constantly adapt and create their own processes moving forward than giving them a set of rules that might not fit every situation they're going to encounter. Do you have any final thoughts around parenting?
No.
Well, that was elegant and very thoughtful, Jasmine. So next week, we're going to talk about one other topic that a lot of people have asked Jasmine and I around the idea of if you're single and you're dealing with a relationship where you've dealt with pornography in the past, how do you approach that conversation? Should you approach that conversation in what way and all that other stuff? But today, hopefully, you've gotten a glimpse into our life as we're not just living free in our own right, but also seeking to make it so that our children have that capacity to live free, but not to live like us, but to be free to live their lives the way that they see fit, while we empower them with the ability to perceive what's really needed, to adapt to situations, and to become responsible for the things that they need to be responsible for.
And that's it for today's Alive and Free podcast. If you enjoyed this show and want some more freedom bombs landing in your earbuds, subscribe right now at wherever you get your podcasts from. And while you're at it, give us a rating and a review. It'll help us keep delivering great stuff to you. Plus, it's just nice to be nice.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.